And we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We do apologize for the delay. Had just a few technical difficulties. Wes is going to be joining us here in just a few minutes via his cell phone. He was having some minor issues with his computer, some static issues, but got a pretty good little Halloween program worked up for you guys tonight. With me, as always, producer and co-host of the show, Miss Daniela Aiolo. How are you, Daniela?
I'm good, thank you. Looking forward to tonight.
All right. And one of our guests for this evening, you're thinking it and he's saying it, Mr. Tony Merkle, host of the Confessionals podcast. And you can find that just about anywhere you can find podcasts and also on YouTube. And we'll be bringing Mr. Wes Germer in here shortly, creator and host of Sasquatch Chronicles. And you can find that same place anywhere you can find a podcast and also on YouTube. But I would recommend SasquatchChronicles.com, and that way you can get all over 500 episodes of Sasquatch Chronicles.
Yeah, I would say that as podcasters, we're not big fans of YouTube. We do YouTube, but we're not big fans of it because it doesn't hook up to our RSS feed. So definitely,
well,
websites.
it's a good starting point for us.
Yeah. So it's just, like if we have people listening to our shows on YouTube, means that it doesn't count towards our podcast, and that's what we do, as a main gig. So I would suggest people check out the websites because you get the same content, and we can actually see that you're listening.
I don't know, guys. I might pass on tonight. I don't know what to do to fix it. I can't log in with my phone. My phone blocks it.
Well, we're live right now, so
hello, everyone.
Yeah, but you know what, man? There's no static right now. So I'll tell you what, the static starts to build up. Just hit that knob one time. Just discharge it. We'll see if that works, because that's been working. Every time you hit a knob, it goes away.
All right.
So we'll totally leave it up to you. But yeah, right now we got Wes some few things we want to talk about tonight. I think Wes and I we discussed talking about the Elisa Lam story, which is creepy, in itself. Even though it's a complete and total mystery. What ended up happening to Elisa. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with it, but you can find it on YouTube. It's a strange video. She's all right, here comes the static, Wes. Let's try it. Let's hit the knob and see if it does anything. Yep.
Should we play this video?
Yeah, that did it. Let's play the video of Elisa Lam.
Sorry, guys. I'm going to ruin the show tonight.
No. Just hit that knob every now and then.
Will be the one to ruin the show, but apparently.
Hey, when I say hit the knob, just hit the knob. We're good. All right. Anybody hasn't seen this before? This lady, she's 5 foot nothing, about 115 pounds. Her name is Elisa Lam, and very strange behavior going on here. Like she's hiding from somebody, and this was pretty much the only evidence they had. It's about 4 minutes long. It's a rather long little piece of video. But Wes, you want to talk about what ended up happening to Elisa?
Yeah, absolutely. And Kerry, thanks for having me on the show. Man. I appreciate you being here. Let me know if the static picks up.
Yeah, hit the knob.
Is it still going?
Yep, hit the knob.
I don't know, guys. Did the people in the chat hear the static?
It's gone.
Do people in the chat? Do you guys hear the static? What's up, Brian?
Yeah, someone said they can hear it. Yeah, it's gone off now.
I don't know, guys.
Yeah, it's gone now.
Elisa Lam, well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. Daniela,
absolutely.
Lady of your class. I'm not sure how you ended up on a show like this, if it's some sort of community service, court order community service that you're doing for the UK, but God bless you for being here. And Tony, it's well, this isn't easy for me to say. It's hard to pay you a compliment, but at sunset, when the lighting conditions aren't great, your beard looks almost not ridiculous. That's great to see.
Well, you know.
Okay, if nobody noticed, Elisa will just hit all the buttons in the elevator.
Oh yeah, we're supposed to be talking about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this lady's running around in this hotel, and I've actually been to that hotel.
Hit the knob.
I don't want to ruin the show, you guys.
And you can't come through on your phone, man.
Yeah, my phone blocks it. I don't know why, and I don't know why I'm having the issues
now.
It's
with the
fine
static.
now.
But
So weird.
We'll get through. Come on, we can do this.
Yeah, we can do it, man. We can get through it.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just gonna say hit the knob, and you're just gonna get frustrated. So I don't.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why. I don't hear the static on my end that you guys are talking about, and I don't know if it's something with StreamYard and which is weird because Tony has the same setup as I do, and he's not experiencing that. So I don't know.
It's almost like a bad connection, and then the static builds up, and then
let me mess with it. I'll be back.
All right, mess with it.
Well, we'll take this video off for now, shall we?
Well, we can finish talking about it. I mean, it's just it's a part of the show now. But what happened? Nobody knew anything about any of this that was going on at the time, obviously, and like 3 days later, guests were complaining about the water. It tasted bad, or it smelled bad, or it was tainted in some way. So they go up on the roof, and who do they find inside the water tank? Elisa Lam. Well, it was suggested that she had climbed in there herself. But it takes at least 4 grown men to lift the lid off of one of those tanks. So, because that's how many people it took to take the lid off. So, the suggestion that she put herself in there was pretty well ridiculous. But she's obviously running from somebody. And the whole thing is just creepy. If you watch the whole video and the actual story of it, it's the
weird thing is when she's in the lift and she's waiting, is why didn't she press the button straight away and get off that floor?
Well, it's almost like the doors don't want to shut. That's another strange thing. And she hits every button. She hit every button for every floor. And then at the end of the video, you can see it goes to every floor. You can,
I thought she was just hiding around the corner at first.
It shuts, opens back. You can tell it's on a different floor because the carpet's different colors. But now they found her 3 days later inside the water tank. And I mean, it looked like somebody was after her. I mean, I can imagine, like I said, she's like 5 feet tall, 115 pounds, little Asian woman. There's no way she lifted that lid and put herself in there. Something happened. Yes, that's what we're going to suggest. Something happened to Elisa Lam because it took 4 people to lift that lid off.
See, that's the problem. Like, so I watch what I can on stuff, and I remember hearing about Elisa Lam, but the problem is with me is I'm so caught up with getting all my stuff together. I don't get a chance to check out all these videos that people are. Usually when I see a video, it's because I saw it on Facebook, like in my feed, like 100 times. And like, maybe I should check this out by now. But I remember hearing about it. I never saw that video. And, of course, I didn't get a chance to focus on it a whole lot because of Wes's issues there. But it seemed like she was peeking out the elevator, like she was waiting for, like she was hoping that whatever she was running from wasn't going to come get her or something. But the elevator wasn't working. So she's hitting all the buttons. The elevator's not closing. And then she ran out of the elevator, and that's the last we saw of it, right?
Right. That was it.
Oh, geez.
It's 4 minutes of that, what you just see of her peeking out, like she's expecting someone to come after her. But the doors never shut. They stay open. And that's just, to me,
and that's the odd thing is that, like if you're running for your life, you get in an elevator, what are the odds that you get the elevator that doesn't work? You know what I mean? And you said it took 4 people to get that lid off?
Yep.
I mean, if she's running from 4 people, what are the chances that we have that much video without any 4 of those people catching up to her and you seeing it on video, right?
Well, there's no video of anybody else in any other elevator. That was all they had. That was the only clue they had of her final moments, as far as anybody knew, was that video.
Interesting.
It is.
When
Crazy.
do they know what time of day this video was shot? Like, was it the middle of the night kind of thing?
They probably, I don't know. They didn't say. I didn't watch the actual. I watched it so long ago, and I just got that video because it didn't have any audio on it, and you know, for us to play and talk about. But they probably would have said what time of day it was. Who knows? I think I do think it was like 2 or 3 in the morning, actually.
And that's what I was gonna say. She probably was a cleaning lady or something like that, because I mean, if there was people in the building, somebody would have seen her running from somebody.
Right.
That's
you would think.
That's really
think. Yeah, it's all very
what history there is at that hotel of stuff. Someone's saying that there's been lots of suicides there or something.
There's too much missing. They initially wanted to call that a suicide, and then they realized there's no way she put herself inside there.
That's right. This was a hotel, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hotel. I think it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. Pretty sure it was. And there's just so much missing with the whole thing. You know, just that video, and then they find her dead.
Right.
Not a lot to go on. We can sit here and speculate, though.
Well, yeah, we can speculate. It definitely seems like it could have a paranormal angle to it. I mean, I've heard several people stories of physically being assaulted in ways that you think, no way could a ghost have that kind of power and energy, or a spirit or something. But and I don't know what the formula is for these things to actually have, because, you know, people have hauntings. Lots of people have hauntings, but there are certain times that these hauntings kick it up a notch, and I don't know what the cause of that is. You know, I don't know if it's the certain entity, or if it's you know, something that somebody has done to allow this entity to have more power. But you know, there are times that people have encountered experiences where things are being thrown, where it's not just like, oh, my cup fell off the table. We're talking about TVs flying off of walls kind of thing. And I just did a show today where a woman was literally dragged down a hallway by an entity. And, you know, that's some serious power. So.
I was listening
absolutely.
To, Matt Zask last night was saying that he had like lots of stuff going on at his house, and that they were arguing a lot and falling out. And I wonder if that intensifies what happened, the energy, if that gives it more to feed off.
Yeah. When
people are being negative, you know.
Yeah, and I always wonder, like, with that idea and stuff. I mean, surely there's been haunted places with lots of negativity that hasn't had that kind of action. So the woman I keep thinking about, because it's really pertaining to the idea of these things being able to move heavy objects. You know, she is a delightful person, happy household, and this thing has been after her entire life. And it just seemed to progress and progress and progress. And now it's to the point where it has died down for her, but it seems like it's now turning its attention towards her son. And it's really interesting how, you know, like, that's what I mean. Like, the formula of these things, it's unpredictable. It's unpredictable. We just don't know enough. And that's why I love doing these kind of shows where we sit around and we talk about different things and we try to just share opinions, because that's, I think, the best way we can learn. There is no handbook on this stuff.
No.
You know, that I've met people from the TV and stuff like that, and a lot of them are great people. And if you get to sit down with them and stuff, a lot of them will say, we don't know. When we're on TV and stuff, we share what we believe, but we're not willing to, you know, set that in stone.
Smart people do that.
Yeah.
Not everybody's smart though.
Yeah, that's true.
I just told Wes to try turning his cell phone off, because if I get my phone too close here, with the internet going, it does that static.
Oh, really?
But only I can hear it. So it might have been his phone being on. So we're gonna try that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I put my phone
I've got
in cage, so no, just kidding.
Let's try.
There he is.
Hello.
Let's try it. Let's see.
Still static. You're right. It is.
No static.
I went and listened to the replay. I could definitely hear it.
Yeah. No static. Not yet.
Yeah.
It's
not going to happen.
Fingers crossed.
Give me time.
Well, the thing is,
there it is.
I'll run the show.
There it is. Yep.
Gremlins, man. They're
Crazy.
gremlins. Halloween. Happy
Gremlins.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Happy Halloween, Wes.
Yeah, no kidding.
Got an iPad or anything?
Let me see what I can do.
Okay.
Hi, Wes. Bye, Wes.
I'll be back.
Well, while we're waiting on Wes, I got a little segment I want to do. It's called we're gonna call it Things That Make You Go Not particularly scary. This is some stuff one of our viewers. I do have a scary Bigfoot story, a viewer submission for later. But Heather, I'm not gonna say her last name. Heather sent me these, and like I said, not particularly scary, but weird stuff. So and they're really short. It's just a couple. So here we go. She says, when I was working at Verizon, I was in Denver office on the phone with a coworker in Idaho who was having trouble placing an order for a large government customer. I kept refreshing my screen to watch the order as she was working on it. Finally, I refreshed, and on my end, the computer showed a status of submitted/complete. So I asked her, excuse me, I guess you were able to get it through. And she said, no, I haven't submitted it yet. So that experience made me wonder about those people who say, is time really linear? So, I mean, that could be several things. That could just be her coworker telling her she didn't send it, or it could be something strange. She gets the message beforehand. I don't know. But there's one more here from her, and it's a short one. She said another time, one of the sales guys was writing an email to send me a question about how to get something done. And I walked over to his desk to answer his question. Only he told me he had just hit send as I walked up to his desk. I had seen his email promptly, got up and walked over to help him when I saw he needed help. I remember him saying it's impossible because he had just hit send as she walked up to his cubicle. So, I mean, those kind of correlate. That's kind of strange, I think.
Absolutely. It's like a glitch in the
matrix. You go, a glitch in the matrix, and then finally you just work your finger and tear it through and you're red pilled all of a sudden.
I mean, I got a story that kind of relates to something like that. You want to hear it?
Yeah, bring it.
Okay. So I'm a truck driver by trade, and I was at a delivery, and I just got inside, and I had gotten I think it was a phone call. Yeah, it was a phone call, and I decided not to answer it because I didn't recognize it. It was from New Orleans, and it called back again, and so I answered it, and it was somebody's voicemail on the other end talking to me. It was like somebody's voicemail message. And so I hang up the phone, and then that number texts me and said, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Nothing. You called me." And then that number texts back again and said, "Call me twice. What's up?" And I'm like, "What is going on here?" And I then it calls again, and I answer, and on the other line is Dark Waters from YouTube. Right. And he's like, "This is Dark Waters. Who's this?" And I'm like, or no, he goes, "This is Dark Waters. Why are you calling me?" Or something like that. Like, because he was irritated that I called twice on his end. And I said, "Dude, like, this is Tony Merkle from the Confessionals, and I didn't call you. Your phone called me." And he's like, "No, your phone called me." And I'm like, "No." And I didn't have his phone number, and he didn't have my phone number. And so of all the billions of phones in the world, our two phones decided to connect and call each other repeatedly until we decided to answer. And it's something that I can't explain. I have no idea. Like, what are the odds that two people who do similar things, who know of each other but don't talk to each other, get connected because our phones decided to? It's like when you're in a dog park and the two dogs bring two people together. It's like, oh, we fell in love because our dogs fell in love. Our phones brought us together. It was so weird, and now we're friends.
It's like a secret chemical somewhere, isn't there? That's something that's doing that. That is really weird.
Very weird.
I just want to go back to what you were saying before about hauntings and stuff, or things going on. I remember listening to one of your podcasts, and it was the guys, a couple that were living with a guy or rented a room to a guy where there was weird stuff going on in that room. I don't know if you can remember. I wish I knew which number it was, or they'd rented this room out, and he was doing weird stuff in there with black magic, I think, and they had a dog, and stuff kept going on and on. And it was like, how long are they going to carry on living there? Or when are they going to like evict this guy?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time remembering that episode. I mean, I think I just put out today 170 episode 175. Yeah, it's hard to remember them all.
Because I listened to them twice or three times sometimes.
Oh, thanks.
Some of them. Yeah, some of them are really, really like, you've got to listen again because you can miss bits.
I'll tell you, sometimes I feel like I miss stuff. My wife will, she doesn't listen to all my episodes, but there's episodes that she'll tune in for. And she will text me and ask me a question about an interview. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she'll be like, well, the person said this. I'm like, I don't remember them saying that. I'm like, I do all my interviews on weekends, and I do about at least 5 interviews a weekend, usually 3 on Saturdays, back to back, and 2 on Sundays. So it's sometimes things get cloudy.
Yeah. Well, which ones do stick in your mind the most, kind of like provoking ones that really sort of sends shivers up you when you think about someone's experience like that?
Yeah, I think the first one I think that really kind of gave me the shivers about was I forget what I called it. I think I called it the unwelcomed roommate, and it was because this guy, he had a roommate, and he didn't know this before the roommate moved in, but I guess the roommate practiced some type of witchcraft. It wasn't like black magic, but I think he might have been a Wiccan or something. But his roommate was doing a lot of different things in the house, and things were happening. And he snuck into his roommate's room one day, or he went in there for something, and he saw this box sitting there, and he opened it up.
This is the one I'm talking about.
What you're talking about? Okay. Okay. Well, see, synchronicities. But he goes in the room, and he messes with this box that the roommate had all his like crystals and stuff in, and his roommate got mad at him, and I forget how the whole story went, but he wound up one night leaving his bedroom, and in the hallway he literally saw a demon manifest right there, and he did a great job describing it. And what I found mostly unnerving, because I mean I hear those kind of stories all the time, but what was really unnerving about that was during the interview, right when he started describing this entity that he saw, we lose connection, and it happens. Skype is not a perfect thing, and but it was the very first time it's ever happened to me. It doesn't happen a lot. It was the very first time it ever happened to me with Skype. We got completely disconnected, and so we reconnect, and within the first 10 seconds of us reconnecting, I was like, hey man, I'm back, kind of thing, where we leave off. That first 10 seconds, something spoke on the line, and I kind of stood back. I was like, what the heck? And at the time, I didn't have my website with memberships. I had Patreon, and part of the package with the Patreon stuff when I was offering it was people got to watch me do interviews live. So like stuff that wasn't going to air for months, they would get to watch it happen live. And so I look at the webcam, and I'm just like, you guys hear that? And people start commenting, yeah, I heard that. And so I commented and said, after the interview, we'll go back and listen to it. And because I didn't want to kind of throw the guy off, because he was just getting to the good part. And we went back and listened to it afterwards. And at first, and there's a lot of people that say they still hear this. Maybe it's me saying to myself, I don't want to hear this. But at first we thought it said, get Tony or get out Tony. And the more I listened to it, I felt like it was saying get Tori or get out Tori, which didn't make any sense though. His name wasn't Tori. My name isn't, nobody's Tori. So that doesn't make sense. So I do wonder sometimes if that was just me trying, literally my brain saying, we're not going there. It's Tori. Don't worry about it, you know? and but that was the first time that I was like, okay.
Yep. Let's see what we got. Let's try it and see what you got, buddy.
I didn't think it was Tori. I don't think it sounded like Tori.
Come on, you're supposed to comfort me on Halloween.
Get Pony. And
Give
not
us a
Tony.
test, Wes.
Yeah, it's kind of my last ditch effort. Do you guys hear any static? Sorry, guys. I feel like I'm ruining the show.
No static. Well, if nothing else, man, we'll have to get you back on for a researcher report. And Tony too.
This was it.
Okay. All right. I'll
No
solve
static.
that. No static yet.
All right.
But yeah, I would say that was probably
Who was Wes and Long?
What's this?
Uh-oh. Let's see what this is.
Oh, who?
We can't hear you. We can't hear you guys.
Is that Longbeard?
Wes and Long.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you tonight. Going to be speaking to Long Donbeard. Some of you guys may know him from the Paranormal Portal. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Wes, thanks for having me. You know, Wes, I've been looking into the unknown for quite some time and find it quite fascinating.
Well, great, Long, great. And I just wanted to ask you, and, you know, there are no right or wrong answers here. How long did it take you to grow that beard?
Actually, I shaved this morning, Wes. No, I'm kidding. It was about 5 years ago.
Guys, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, guys.
Happy Halloween.
And say hello to you guys and keep up the good work.
Thanks for crashing the party. We
appreciate hair down and everything.
That was excellent.
Yeah, that was awesome, guys.
Just wanted to say hey in person to you guys. We appreciate all you guys do. All of you guys that are around here right now, you guys are all awesome. And Tony,
even Tony,
you guys rock. Even Tony, hell yeah.
Hey, you guys remember Wes Germer?
What's that?
Remember who's that?
Exactly.
The real ones. So anyway, we're not going to waste tons of your time here, guys. We just wanted to pop on here, something funny we wanted to do for you guys, and just say hey.
It was awesome. Thank you. Well worth you shaving your head for, I
bet. Oh yeah, and what do you think? I got the little darkening here.
Just for men action going on.
This and that. Did the best we could do. So
nice. Looks good. I like it.
Yeah, man, you did good.
Thank you, Wes.
Thanks for the laugh.
You guys continue with the show. Continue with the great work, and we'll talk.
I just got here, so
talk to you sometime soon. Then, right? Unless there's anything else we should do. I mean, should we? We don't want to crash the party too hard, do we?
No, I got to drive.
Long Donbeard's got to drive here. So, guys, good luck. Hopefully nothing else messes up your mic and all that. Happy Halloween.
So far, so good.
Okay, good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Peace.
That's Jake and Adam, the BLB. There's a reason we have Blue Line Wednesday. And that's it right there. Every other Wednesday, it's something like that. And gotta love those guys. So far, so good, Wes. No
I switched over to Chrome, so for future reference, I downloaded Chrome and threw it on there, and I thought, well,
that was probably it. Yeah. Daniela did say that.
I did say you in the Chrome browser.
Just so to say, I told you so. She told you so.
Daniela is the IT support for all podcasts.
Yeah, it's part of her community service.
That's it. You know.
Yeah, because there's no way she would do this on her own. No one with free will would do this on purpose. All right. Well, you know what I have? I have got a creepy, scary Bigfoot story. And I've talked this down the phone. This is a viewer encounter. It's someone that lives by him. I want to read this. It's not that long. It's pretty short. This is from Mike Carter, actually. He said I could say both his names. He said, I have lived in South Georgia all my life and have a friend who owns a lot of land right next to a large plantation, like 20,000 acres. That's large. He has 5 sons, and one of them passed away several years ago. Not sure how that matters, but but these people live in the woods and are not scared of anything. They have grown up around me. One morning, one of the sons went deer hunting early. I mean, dark. He was sitting in his stand, and all of a sudden, something started shaking the hell out of his tree stand that he was in. He tried to see what it was, but couldn't see anything. At the time, he was freaking out a little. He kept sitting there, and as it started to get light out, he heard something moving behind him. He turned to look for it, and what he saw took his breath away. He was terrified. He called his dad to come and pick him up at the bottom of the stand, which is unusual for him to do. When his dad got there, he jumped on the UTV side by side, and they headed out to the house. His dad tried to get him to talk about what was going on, but he was crying and shaking and wouldn't say a word. When they got him home, he jumped off the UTV and ran into the house and into his room. It was about 4 hours before he came out and told everyone what he saw. When he turned to look at the movement, he saw this man-like creature with long hair and arms. The hair was a reddish brown and had a bad odor to it. It was walking upright away from him. Then it stopped and turned and looked right back at him, and he said it was like staring right into his soul. Big eyes, about 7.5 to 8 feet tall. Then it turned back and continued to walk away from him. While he waited for his dad to come, he heard a loud yell or scream and thought it was coming back with more to get him. Then his dad showed up. And what this guy told me was these guys are not ones to get scared out of the woods. He said they go hunting for hogs and don't take a gun. He said they take like an 8-inch Bowie knife and dogs, and they'll come back with a hog, a 400-pound razorback hog. So, I mean, these are like hardcore people, like don't go to town type of people. And he said, this guy won't go back in the woods. I can relate. But, I mean, Wes, you've been there. Tony, would that scare you think? Something shaking your tree stand? I mean, come on.
Of course. And, it doesn't surprise me when you mentioned the hair color, because I keep hearing the same thing with these freaking things. The most aggressive ones seem to be the ones with the reddish brown hair. I don't know what that is about, but it seems to be a very common repeated theme.
What I saw was black, and he was pretty aggressive. I think Wes saw multiple colored ones, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't think color really matters too much as far as what you're going to get.
What do you know?
Yeah, that's a fascinating account. The weirdest thing, there's can I tell a weird story?
Oh, absolutely. It's Halloween.
Yeah. The one thing I've been coming across a lot lately on the shows, and I've probably been told this a half a dozen times off the air, so not very often, but have you guys ever heard of it's not really a hitchhiker. I'll give you an example. There was a guy I had on the show a couple weeks ago, and he was driving with his family from Georgia to Florida. And on his way to Florida, they're driving down the road, and there's this African-American guy, and he's on the he's in the opposite lane walking towards where they're at. He's actually walking towards them, and they pass him, and he's wearing like corduroy pants. He's wearing a white t-shirt thrown over his shoulder. And the weird part about it, and he was just a man, according to them, but as they pass him, they have the brights on. And when they have the brights on, he doesn't, the normal human reaction is to put your hand over your eyes or kind of look away, especially late at night, or to even get off to the side of the road. Well, this guy didn't. He was in the other lane walking towards them, and they thought, oh, that's weird. And he didn't even really acknowledge that they were there. Well, they keep driving, and they drive like another 5 or 6 miles. And pretty soon here comes that same guy, same side of the road, shoulder, it has his shirt over his shoulder, same pants, same everything. It was like deja vu. And as they passed him, everyone got weirded out at that point because it was like complete deja vu. So as he's driving down, all these deer come out in front of them. And if that guy wouldn't have been there, and they would have slowed down. If they wouldn't have slowed down, they would have hit all those deer coming up. And the story gets a little bit more weird than that. But I had a truck driver tell me a very similar story. He didn't want to tell, he just wanted to tell the Bigfoot portion of the story. He didn't want to tell this other portion, but he was doing the same thing. He said this beautiful woman was walking in the middle of the road, and he said there was something odd about her. He couldn't put his finger on it. And he goes, he just thought it was a normal woman, but he's like, why is she walking in the middle of the lane as he's going down this out in the middle of nowhere? And he drives like another 10 miles and he's out in the middle of nowhere, and he comes across that woman again. Almost identical to what he saw 10 miles back. Same woman, same everything. And so he slowed down, and because he slowed down, up ahead there was a drunk driver, and the drunk driver came around the corner. If he wouldn't have slowed down, that drunk driver would have hit this. I'm sure it wouldn't have hurt the truck driver, but still would have been an accident. And I've been getting a lot of weird stories like that off the air of people seeing the same person. Have you ever heard of that, Tony or Kerry or Daniela? Have you guys ever heard of that?
Oh yeah, Daniela had that happen to her.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Like a guardian angel, maybe, or someone protecting you. Do you think?
Daniela was essentially about to shoot herself in the head with a spear gun, and somebody yelled as she was loading it, right? And you turned, and it
went past like that.
So if they wouldn't have yelled at you, and you would have stuck with that one click instead of the two, that would have been it. There would be no researcher's report.
Strange. But yeah, I've been getting a lot of those. And then anytime I go off topic, off of Bigfoot, the audience seems to lose their shiz. But so another guy had on, he was a cop, and he was he got called out to this place where this guy was committing or they thought he was going to commit suicide. And I don't know if you guys heard that show, if I'm just repeating myself, but it was fascinating encounter. He goes out to this place. It's a hospital, and the main doctor called the cops because they thought this guy was going to commit suicide. So when they get there, there's this guy sitting in a chair. He's not really doing anything. He's not really bugging anyone. And he was talking to the doctor. He's like, well, why do you think he's going to commit suicide? And the doctor's like, he's been looking at me the whole time. And the cop's like, well, what does that bother you about that? He goes, no, his head's been turned all the way around 180 degrees looking at me while he's sitting in that chair. And the cops are like, okay. So they walk up, they talk to this guy, and he was just mumbling, almost like he wasn't really there. He really wasn't cooperating at all. So the cops go back to the doctor and they tell him, well, there's not really, he's not doing anything. He hasn't broken any laws. There's really nothing we can do about it. So they leave. And the next day, the cop is at home, and he turns on the radio and hears 5 or 6.
Oh, we lost you. We lost you, Wes.
We see you. We just don't hear you.
Yeah, we don't hear you. Did you flick a switch? Blow a fuse? Nothing.
I heard something just before it went off.
Yeah, I heard something before it went out too.
It almost sounded like you moved and like a wire got pulled out or something.
Yeah.
It's like, psh.
Happy Halloween, man. The gremlins are out.
The gremlins are on this thing.
We can't hear a word.
They hate Germer.
He's muted. I think he was muted.
Was he muted?
Yeah, I think he just muted himself.
We're sure he'll be back.
Let me message him.
That is what was he saying that these what was he saying? Completely.
Yeah, he was talking about the guy who I think you said it was the police officer. And
oh yeah, the head was spinning and all that. And I actually remember listening.
So
to
he's
that.
talking to this is what I'm gathering. He's talking to this guy, and he can see this other guy with his head spun around, and it's talking like a spirit.
Well, no, it was a real person. The cop was called to the scene by a doctor. The guy was like a caregiver there, like a nurse or something. And he said one of the employees was acting crazy. The cop went to look at him, and he seemed fine for the cop at first. But the doctor had said, well, when I was there, like the guy was like facing one way, and his head was turned facing the other way. And he's like, I think there's something wrong with the guy. But because the guy wasn't doing anything crazy, the cops couldn't do anything about it. And I don't know if I should continue. I know the story. I just don't know if I should continue or let him share it when he comes back.
Well, I told him, because the thing we heard was his mouse clicking. I know I have the same mouse he does.
Yeah, that was
yeah. It was that mouse click, and he muted himself. That's all it was.
Poor Will. Tony, but there was two. It was a few years ago in England, and there's a bit of YouTube stuff about it. 2 twins, and I think they were Swedish or something, and they were picked up on camera on the motorway, and they were throwing themselves into the trucks and the cars, and then the police come grabbed one, and then she ran into a truck. I mean, they were like run over and stuff, but they got up the next day. You know, they were getting up, and I mean, what was going on with them?
I mean, that I remember seeing those videos, and there was a lot of theories going on about that. I mean, one of the most popular theories was that these 2 women were some type of super soldier. People were believed that they went through some kind of deep state training and were super soldiers. The only problem with that is I've heard of MK Ultra. I've just a couple weeks ago I talked to one of the most famous people that went through MK Ultra. They're human beings and they can die, and so what we saw in that video was superhuman, like not human almost, and so I don't know. I mean, you hear people talk about how we have extraterrestrials walking among us and we just don't know it, like they look like us. And it does make you wonder if it was an extraterrestrial, would they even be immune to such kind of damage to their body? Is it their body? Now I'm talking about Men in Black, where she touches the ear and the head opens up and it's a little alien inside wearing a suit. But I mean, there's just so many. I guess when you talk to so many people that have just otherworldly experiences, I come to the conclusion on my own that I just cannot put anything inside of a box and say that's impossible. I've seen too many things that are, should be impossible that I've seen personally. And then, you hear so many stories, but with those girls, and they were sisters, right?
They were twins, I think.
Yeah.
I got a feel, and there was no drugs found in them. I think they were tested for drugs.
Yeah.
And I think they escaped or something, and then they went on to stab someone.
Yeah, we can't tell if you muted yourself because of Daniela's overlay here. Their technical support.
Technical support's in.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. Sorry, I feel like I ruined the show. I can bow out. I really didn't. I didn't touch anything. It just muted and.
Well, I heard a click, and it sounds like the exact same mouse that I have, because I think you have an iMac, right?
Yeah, I didn't touch a mouse, though.
Okay, man. Okay. Not accusing you, but we can't tell.
Living or something.
We can't tell if it got muted somehow. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Because we can't see it with the overlay there. But hey, you're back now. So let's finish the story. The guy's talking to the dude with his head turned around, and what?
I lost interest.
Would you think that was just the one with superhuman strength?
No. So what happened is the cop, he gets a call the next day. So he gets a call over the radio. All these guys are fighting, and he knows 3 of the cops that are there, and he's like, these are some big boys. I mean, one of them's like 6'6", and he's like a UFC fighter, and these aren't the men you want to mess around with, and they're screaming for help on the radio. So he jumps in his car and he heads over there, and he was like, it's relatively close to my house, so he heads over there, and when he gets there, he goes, it was the same guy that the doctor claimed turned his head all the way around, and he's like, this guy's like 5'8", 130 pounds, and these guys are struggling with this guy. I mean, he's given them the beating of their life, and they're trying everything they can to hold him down. So he jumps on him, and he puts one handcuff on and starts reaching around for the other hand. And the guy does a reverse setup, a Roman setup. And when he does a Roman setup, his head spins all the way around, facing the cop. And the cop's like, you would assume they would break their neck doing that, but he didn't. and he said the guy was chanting the whole time, and they finally got the cuffs on him. But the story is they interviewed his girlfriend, and his girlfriend was saying, well, about a week ago he started playing at the Ouija board, and then one night he just snapped, and he was going to kill the parrot. They live in an apartment, and the guy next door had a parrot, and so he started ripping through the sheetrock, and he ripped all the insulation out, ripped through the next wall. He was going to go kill that parrot. And that's about the time the cops showed up. And when the cops showed up, the guy that was there said he did like a front flip through a window, like a plate glass window, landed like he's a gymnast, and then did a backflip off the deck and started running. And that's the time he tackled them. And it came out basically the guy was possessed. They took him to the hospital. They checked him for drugs in his system or alcohol in his system, and he was clean. Everything was clean. He was just this. And I had the Confessions of the Pastor on, and he talked a lot of demonic possessions too, as well, and people doing superhuman strength. There's one I was telling Tony I was going to send it to him. It's this guy that's possessed, and they show him. If you look up farmer possessed on YouTube, it'll come up. And it's this guy back, I think in the 90s, where they filmed it with the VHS camera, and he's sweating blood. Blood's coming out of his eye. He's getting scars that show up on his face. I mean, just stuff that's impossible. And same thing. He was playing with the Ouija board, and one day he just snapped. And his wife at the time said he just was a different person. He wasn't the same guy. And so it's nothing to play with, but it's fascinating anyway, that's the story.
Yeah, no, that's
I'm gonna go back to my corner.
Maybe those girls would
the support corner.
I try. I mean, I personally try to steer clear of demonic stuff. I don't want to watch it on YouTube. I don't, I'll do the ghost stuff every now and then, but when it says demon, I just not interested. Good. I have a ghost story. I've been saving this for this night, and it's a family story. My grandmother used to tell it and scare the ever living out of me every time. But it was her cousin. This was back in the 20s, South Mississippi, so there's no electricity. And it's one of her cousins. She was like 13 years old. And she had a regular routine. There was like 3 girls that slept in the same bedroom. And this girl always came in last. And there's a coal oil lamp. And, excuse me. Dr. Pepper. There's a coal oil lamp. She would blow the lamp out, and then everybody go to bed at this particular time. Well, she always complained that they sharecropped, and they would pick like cotton, tomatoes, whatever. Well, they were picking cotton, and she was always complaining that there was something wrong so she could get out of doing the work. Well, she complained, one day about, crying wolf, her stomach hurts or whatever. So her dad tells her, just go in the house, go to bed, whatever. Well, so she goes in the house, goes to her room, whatever room, a different room, maybe to the couch or whatever. Well, nighttime comes, they all come in the girls are in the bedroom. The girl walks in, just like she always does, blows the coal lamp out, and the other girls tell her good night or whatever, and she doesn't reply. Well, they keep, they can't hear her get in the bed or anything. So my grandmother says she gets up and to light the light back, and she's not in the room. Well, they go to look for her, and they find her in another room dead. She had passed away and was cold, had been dead for a while. Her appendix ruptured, and she went and laid down and earlier that day and died. But she came back in that night and blew that lamp out somehow. So my grandmother used to tell that story, and kind of got goose pimples right now. Just a little bit. I mean, it's a ghost story. It used to scare me as a kid. I wouldn't like I said, I'm not particularly afraid of the dark, but I will turn the lights on every now and then. I got them all off now.
It's always in the dark, though, isn't it? It's always the dark that scares people.
It's not the dark. It's not the dark. It's what potentially in the dark.
But you can't see these spirits anyway. So what does it matter? What does it matter whether it's in the dark or in the day? It's even freakier in the day to see, you know, your drawers being pulled out, your furniture being thrown all over the place. I mean, I really don't know how people cope with it. You know,
but how often is it in the middle? You know, it's either I saw this thing, this spirit or whatever, and it just looked like a person. You know, I couldn't see through it or whatever, or I saw nothing and there's all this stuff going on. I mean, how often do you really hear about the real floating apparitions? You know, I hardly ever hear about that stuff. Maybe some of the pictures or whatever that you get from Ghost Adventures or whatever will have those, but I think a lot of that stuff's just pareidolia, just me.
I got a creepy story for you.
Right.
Oh, sorry, love. I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you gonna say? Okay.
No.
So I had a family member one time. I went into this home. It's my only real like ghost story, I guess. I show up at this person's home, and I won't say who it is, but I show up at this person's home, and immediately, and I've been there a million times, but this particular time when I showed up, it felt like someone was right in front of my face, like looking at me, and I couldn't quantify it or explain it in any way, but it felt like someone was right here in front of my face, and they didn't like me. I mean, it wasn't a happy feeling. It was like, whatever this is doesn't like me. And so I'm not breaking up, am I?
Nope.
Okay. So I go there and I'm talking to the person, and I said, "What's going on here?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Something's not right here. Something's wrong. Like, what's going on here?" Because I couldn't really explain why I felt the way I felt. It's not like I saw anything. You know what I mean? And I was just like, "What's going on here?" And so I was telling him that the moment I walked into this home, I felt like someone was sitting inches away from my face no matter where I go in this home, and they don't like me one bit. And I said, "It sounds nuts, but I can't explain it." He goes, I want to show you something. So we go in the backyard, and he had a wooden fence. So we walk up to the wooden fence, and there's Egyptian hieroglyphs carved into the fence. And it looked like it had been carved with a laser. This wasn't cut in with a knife. This wasn't. And it looked like what you would think of when you see Egypt. You think of the stuff, you know, the hieroglyphs. And I was like, "What the hell is that?" And he goes, "I don't know. It showed up yesterday." And I was like, "Is this guy screwing with me?" And he goes, "It's also in the garage." So we go out to the garage, and in the sheetrock was the same type of writing. Same way. It looked like it had been cut with a laser. You know, I worked in construction, so if you cut into sheetrock, you're going to see where someone actually cut into sheetrock. It didn't look like that at all. This looked like it had been cut in with a hot laser. And I was like, "What is all this?" Well, what happened was his girlfriend decided she'd become a Wiccan, which I guess is like a witch. And she was casting spells, and, you know, you think she'd just become Catholic or Protestant. I don't know why you go Wiccan, but she ended up becoming a Wiccan. And he would tell me, like, when he would leave the home, he'd walk out to the car, get in the car, forget his wallet, run right back in the house, and all the cupboard doors are open. There's trash everywhere. It looks like someone just ransacked the place. And he literally just walked out and then walked back in. And one night, a couple things happened. One night, he told me that he woke up and there was a bunch of people in the room, like just standing there looking at him. And he woke up his girlfriend, and she couldn't see him. He's like, "I'm telling you, there's a room full of people." And so that happened. And then there was another night where nothing ever happened to the lady that was practicing being a Wiccan. Like, nothing ever odd seemed to happen to her, but everyone around her, it seemed to happen to. And one night he's laying in bed, and he told me that he felt something enter the room. It grabbed him around the throat, threw him down on the bed, and started choking him, and got right in his ear and started growling at him. And he said it wasn't a human growling. It wasn't an animal growling. It was something very, very different. And he's thinking he's going to black out. And then finally it just let him go. So he gets up and he goes out in the living room. Well, she had a 16-year-old daughter at the time. And the 16-year-old daughter's standing in the middle of the living room when he walks out there. And her eyes are about this big. And she's pale as a ghost. She had the same identical story as he did. Something had entered her room. I don't know if it happened. It must have happened at the same time because he literally jumped out of bed, ran in there, and she was in there. And it did the same thing to her, held her down, started choking her, and was growling in her ear. And he ended up burning everything. And I guess it went away. But it just goes to show you, man, there's some weird stuff. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Crazy. It seems like there would be, if there's a ritual to bring them in, that you would need a ritual to get rid of it. You know, it seems like just burning everything wouldn't do it. But,
yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it did.
I was saying this last night, though. There seems to be lots of different categories of spirits, doesn't there? There's like the good ones, the helpful ones, the nasty ones. I mean, is it really like that? The demonic ones? I mean, how can
kind of like Bigfoot?
A mix of it? The poltergeist that can use energy, can move things. It doesn't, you know, how can it be so varied?
Well, if you read the Book of Enoch, and I won't go too religious on you guys, but if you read the Book of Enoch, they tell you where demons come from. So it kind of makes sense they would have different personalities.
Okay.
In the Book of Enoch.
Well, and also, you know, reality is perception. So, I mean, you can have two different people experience the same thing and perceive it in different ways. So, I mean, you know, you're talking about people and their experiences and what they draw from and how they perceive something is, you know, how they're going to bring it back to you. So I think that could be part of it also. Just like with Bigfoot, you know, Sasquatch, we travel all over and it's always different. It's always a different behavior. It looks different. But again, I think a lot of that is just how you're perceiving what you're seeing. There's such a level of disbelief involved in it anyway, especially if, you know, if you see it for the first time. I imagine a spirit would be the same way.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want much to do with spirits. I got no love for them either.
Me either.
I think that they're around a lot more than people want to said this around. I just don't think that they necessarily bother everybody all the time, but I think that they're much more real and present than anybody wants to believe.
Do you think there's a set of rules, Tony, that they have to play by?
Not necessarily. I think that there is, but
I mean, they just don't. Why aren't they at your house? Why aren't they at my house?
Well, they might be. That's what I'm saying. Like, the angels had a set of rules and they disobeyed God, right? So if angels can disobey God and fall from heaven and create the havoc that they did, then there is this thing called free will that affects even the spiritual realm.
Not always.
Now, I'm not saying always, but what I'm saying is it's possible.
Satan had to go to God to get permission to mess with Job, if you believe the Bible.
But Satan also didn't have to ask permission to fall from God's grace either.
Yeah. I'll fight you right now. Don't even mess with me, buddy.
We can go down to theology. I mean, I'm just saying, like, you mentioned about the different entities and everything. There just are. I mean, and I mean, most people I assume that know who I am, know that I come from a Christian background and all that stuff. So I do have like a different perception on things, but hey, Germer, go fix the mic. But
I'm doing my best tonight. This is being my best.
But I mean, like when we're talking about demonic entities and this kind of stuff, I mean, you can't really talk about it without talking about, you know, where it could come from and what source do we have? Well, we do have the Bible from that. I mean, we can't really go and find, you know, ancient scriptures out. Well, you can, but I mean, the Bible is really a go-to for that. And what I'm saying is, in the Bible, it talks about how you can actually summon spirits. There's a reason why in the Old Testament, God forbid necromancy. It wasn't because it was impossible. It's because it was possible and he didn't want people to do it. And so because it is possible and people do it, they can summon entities. And then I think it was either 1st or 2nd Samuel. It talks about Saul going to a witch to summon the spirit of the dead prophet Samuel. Like, it didn't say that Saul talked to a demon. It didn't say he talked to an angel. It said that he talked to the dead spirit of Samuel. A prophet who was supposed to be in the presence of God was summoned by a witch and communicated with Samuel. That's there. So when you have to deal with that, and so we're talking about not just a demon, but we're also talking about this is the dead spirit of a prophet who is now presented in spirit form. So now we got demons, we got prophets, we got fallen angels, we got holy angels. And in Psalm 82, the very first couple of verses in Psalm 82, it recounts God holding judgment among other gods. So now you're talking about God creating other God entities who actually governed over humanity in a spiritual way. And that's there. And so a lot of people don't like talking about it. A lot of people don't even know it exists in the Bible, but there are many levels. And I think there's way more than I can even fathom, but that's just a few different kinds of levels of other realm entities that are in existence.
Can I bring up a side note?
Sure. What?
And then we can get off the Bible. Do you know when the Egyptians would go through and when someone died, what's it called?
Mummification.
Yeah, mummification. Do you know why the theory behind that was? Like, I read this whole article, and sorry, I'm trying to read the chat too. I read this whole article on how they would teach how you would come back in life, or there was an afterlife. And the reason why they would do that mummification is because down the road, eventually there would be DNA. And it got me thinking about Nimrod, how they dug up Nimrod and how he looked like he had died yesterday. And if you could take that DNA and recreate him, you could do that with almost any one of those guys. I mean, it's not, they clone dogs. It wouldn't be hard to get DNA and recreate Nimrod, or get some DNA and recreate some of these gods.
You know, they've cloned people.
Oh, yeah, of course they have.
Yeah.
So, Tony's a clone. So I'm
many clones.
You know, you talked about aliens. I swear, as many people as I've talked to, at least 5% have got to be from another world. There's not a doubt in my mind. But you were also talking
people
about. Huh?
Are you talking about people or?
Yeah, it's people.
Oh,
yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, I mean, there are probably some watching right now. I've talked to so many of them. Literally, a lot of really far out there stuff. You know, where a lot of people don't get what it is that we do. You know, we don't go look for Bigfoot. We don't. You know, I try to maintain the naturalistic aspect of Sasquatch as long as I can until it just can't be explained any other way. Then I'll go the paranormal route. And we've done that before. But you know, it's just a lot of people. I get a lot of calls for people telling us that we need to come to this place. And there's this one guy, I'll probably get a phone call from him, but he's constantly in contact with Sasquatch, and their orbs, and they're coming inside him and out of him. They're going into trees. It's like all the time. They're just talking to him all the time. And he used to call me a lot, and he kind of quit because I just told him that there was nothing.
Check it out.
No, I mean, I'm not going. No, somebody else can go do it. Fine.
Why not?
Because I think he's crazy. That's why.
But if you don't know, it's easy to sit back. I mean, if I didn't believe in Bigfoot and I heard your Bigfoot story, I'd go, Kerry's crazy.
Okay.
So why not take an opportunity and go see if he's crazy? If you're really I'll tell you the same thing Dr. Bennernagel told me. You're disingenuous. You're not looking for honest answers. You're trying to fit Sasquatch into your box to what you think it is. And that's the wrong thing to do. What you need to do is share everyone out. If you think he's nuts, why not go find out if he's full of it or not?
Because I'm not rich, man, and my time is valuable. And this is like traveling to Ohio to find out that I was right all along. I got to go with my gut.
I'm not trying to break your balls. What I'm saying though is the doc really changed my opinion on that, because he said you're disingenuous, Wes. You're not looking for honest answers. If you're unwilling to hear someone out because you think they're nuts, you're not looking for honest answers. You're looking for, and I'm not breaking your balls, Kerry. I'm saying this is what he said to me. And it made sense to me when he said that. I was like, you know what? He's right. Because if I'm looking for what I think Sasquatch is, I'm really not looking for anything. I have my answers, and I already know what it is, and I'll create my narrative based on that. And he was right. It's the wrong thing to do. There's a lot of people where I've heard a lot of odd things, and I thought that person's nuts. And then a week later, I hear from someone else. They never heard that conversation, and they're telling me the exact same thing. And I'm like, okay, he's nuts. And then you hear it again and again and again. And eventually you get to the point to where you're like, I don't know what to think. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's not as crazy as I thought it was. It sounds crazy, but when you hear it over and over and over again, it makes you stop and go, I don't know anything. I really don't know. Like, I don't even know what to think anymore. And that's my point. I wasn't breaking your balls. I'm just saying that's how they talk.
We do have our ideology, and our Facebook group reflects that. Our travel show and the researchers' reports, we try to remain as neutral as possible. We do. We went to Nebraska from South Mississippi and did episode 9 with Rest Watching, and it was a lot of cloaking and orbs, and we captured an EVP. I believe wholeheartedly that I captured an EVP in one of those valleys. You can hear it on the episode. It's crazy. So it's not like I don't put any stock in it, but when I hear someone like that, and there's zero bona fides, none, no evidence for it, anything, and it's 1,000 miles away.
I hear you.
I got to go with my gut on some of these things, because our time.
Yeah.
I don't, if I had, Animal Planet or Discovery Channel backing us, that it might be different, and or somebody else, vetting these people. But I get a lot of calls, a lot of people, that just have an encounter, and that to me, if we're going to tell a story, it's going to be the Odyssey. That's the reason we're doing what we're doing. You have a whole story to tell, from indifferent or non-believer all the way to eyeballs deep and everything that happened in between. To me, that's worth traveling for. If it's a good enough story, because the way I feel about it, you can have all the evidence in the world. If the story is not good, you don't get to know these people, credibility is lacking. It can be. And it's too easy for somebody to say.
No, I hear you. And you do run into a lot of, don't get me wrong, mental illness is rampant in the Bigfoot community. But
I think they're experiencing something. I just don't think it's Bigfoot.
I think it's a case of crazy things are happening to people, not so much the people are crazy. And it's just, a lot of it, you just can't explain it. Even the Bigfoot stories that you hear.
It goes back to my question though, Kerry. What is Bigfoot? You say, well, it's going on, but I don't think it's Bigfoot related. Well, what do you think Bigfoot is then?
This is the big squeak though, Wes. He hasn't seen a Bigfoot.
Oh, I gotcha. Well, I'm not saying him as an example. I'm just saying in general. I hear that a lot of times from Bigfoot researchers where they'll go, oh, this isn't Bigfoot related. Well, what is Bigfoot then? Oh, it's an ape. Okay.
Well, I know that's your number one question on your show. You ask everybody that same question. What do you think it is? You asked me what it was. I think it's a type of people, but that's to my experience.
Yeah, of course.
For 7 years, I never experienced anything that I know of that was paranormal. Everything was physical. I interacted with them, although I didn't know I was interacting with them. And it wasn't until I saw them, or I saw one, that it all came back. This is what's been going on out here the whole time. So I couldn't attribute any piece of anything that I experienced out there to paranormal. I never saw a light. Any voice I ever heard was talking, sounded like it was 40 yards away, and there are people are walking down the road into the lease, and they're talking. So I yell at them, hey, I'm hunting. You're gonna get shot.
I'm not trying to break your balls. I don't want to come.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, whatever.
I leave that for Tony.
That's all right. I don't. Linda has my balls anyway, so.
Dang.
No, it is. I mean, you hear a lot of weird stories. It wasn't until the one thing that's odd about Bigfoot again, I think mental illness runs rampant in the Bigfoot world, but one thing that you'll find a lot of times with people is when they have them on their property, there's some weird stuff that goes on, and I don't know what I call it weird coincidences. There's a lot of strange coincidences that seem to happen over and over and over again, and not like what you encounter, Kerry, or myself, or your average person that runs into one. They're going to say, well, I ran into a person, or I ran into an ape, or I ran into, and nothing weird. I mean, beyond seeing Bigfoot, nothing really weird happened. It's not like no one mind spoke to you. No one really, there was no lights. You just saw what you thought was either an animal or a person. And then you guys parted ways. But what's weird is when you start having these things on people's properties, when you start getting just a lot of weird, what I would call paranormal activity. And it's coincidental. It's very strange coincidences that happen time and time and time again. And if it was one property, I'd say, you probably got Bigfoot on your property and you got some demons you need to figure out.
Right.
What's weird is you'll see it time and time again on people's property, to where I can't think of anyone that I've ever talked to that had these on their property. And my second question is always, have you seen the lights? I don't think anyone's ever told me no. Almost every single time there's a long pause on the phone and they'll say, how did you know? And what I'm saying, it's a weird, I'm not saying Bigfoot and the lights are one and the same. What I'm saying, it's a weird coincidence that seems to show up when these things show up. And you'll find a lot of other weird things. Sorry,
it's happening with Carl and Rachel Gautreaux.
Yeah.
They've gone from Bigfoot visiting their property to now seems to be paranormal stuff going on.
But we're not sure they're related.
No, but
they seem to be related.
That howl, the way that thing moves, the orb, it looks like a black mass.
Carl and Rachel Gautreaux are a couple that live in Lafayette, Louisiana, and it's kind of a remote subdivision. We did a documentary about their place, episode 7, and they find, he's missing dog food, and he buys a blue buffalo. It's like $65 a bag, and he's using 100 pounds a week. But the way he has it, he just dumps it into a bin, which is outside on the back porch. And, he doesn't really notice until he asked Rachel, where's that other bag of dog food? She said that was it. He said 100 pounds in a week. Well, it wasn't long after that he finds a 17-inch footprint on the patio. He called us the next day. Again, people not knowing what it is we do, but we ended up getting an episode out of it. So he called me, and he showed me the picture of it. I said, man, it's like a skunk ape. I mean, it just had that weird S in the heel, like this I've seen 100 times down in Florida. Well, I said, go look in the yard, see if you find any more. So he finds 5 more coming in a line, and he casts one of them. I mean, these are footprints. There's no doubt what it is, 17-inch. And then goes to finding all the other weirds. I mean, huge. He puts up I said, look, if you don't want them to come around, put up a trail cam. If you want to try to catch them, since it's at the house, get a baby monitor. Well, he did. He puts a baby monitor, have an outdoor kitchen. He puts this baby monitor up in the windowsill, but he doesn't cover up the red light. The red light's still on. He comes out the next morning, and it's laying inside on the floor, like something had hit it and knocked it over. Well, ever since then, they have all this stuff hitting the house. A 5-pound piece of concrete that I couldn't throw any distance, maybe 5 or 10 feet, hit the roof. I mean, hard.
Wow.
Bam. Yeah, and falls off into the yard. And then he goes out and he finds all this stuff is happening to the house now, and these strange whistles. It just sounds like 4 whistles in one is what it kind of like a horse neighing, but it's a whistle. Yeah. And the dogs go nuts. And then there's this strange howl. There's all kind of stuff. Go to Carl and Rachel Gautreaux's channel. I think it's, what is it? LA Swamp Ape.
I've got it here. Will I play that little clip?
Yeah, play it.
So
turn your headphones down.
Basically, someone's enhanced the sound. You'll see what's happening. There's a dog's barking, but the howling that you start to hear is not the dogs.
No.
We don't know what it is.
So hear that whistle first. Now look at the jeans by the tire swinging now. Yeah, that was not either one of those two dogs that was doing that big howl.
And now this thing that's moving here.
I think it's a bug, but I mean, it may not be. It could be, and it could be something else. But what's interesting is the jeans. That's a pair of jeans by the tree. You got the tire, and there's a pair of jeans hooked to that rope. There's something in that tree. It may be a possum or whatever. I don't know. That wakes up once all the commotion starts. But you can see this right here. They've got them. Yeah, so it's wild. You see that the top of that fence is 6 foot 2 inches. 6 foot boards are 2 inches off the ground, and they've got video of an apex popping up like from the nose up, looking over the fence.
Yeah,
several times. So they're coming there. You have to watch the episode to see, you know.
And that was what, episode 7? You said, Kerry?
Episode 7.
I checked that out. I think I've seen that before. It's been a while, but.
Yeah, that was in January 1st this year. We did that one. Yeah. And I'm working on episode 12 right now, Sisters of the Moon. It's coming out.
Those are good ladies.
They are. I'm actually that's what I'm dressed up as. I'm Debbie Jones.
Yeah, Debbie's the only one I know, but I mean the only one I know of. I don't know Debbie, but they seem like great ladies.
They are fearless.
Yeah,
Southern. Yeah, a lot of good evidence. There's a lot of good evidence in this one. A lot of good audio, some strange gibberish. Sounds like talking voices that are not them.
And Debbie's down there in Texas, right? Or is she Louisiana?
I think she's in East Texas, Northeast Texas, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
They seem like fun ladies.
Yeah. Yeah, Linda got to be she's actually an honorary Sister of the Moon now. So
what about Daniela?
Not yet.
Can't leave our girl behind.
Daniela's got to get over here and
I know.
And get out there with us.
Maybe I'll try for the expedition just to, you know.
Yeah, but then you got to go to Stinktown, Florida. Even us Americans don't like Florida. No. So you got to come to the West Coast. It's where it's at.
I'll go to the West Coast then and just tune in.
Yeah, if there's a middle of nowhere in Florida, that's where we're going to be. So
yeah.
Yeah, if there's any time to go, I reckon this is a good time.
Yeah, because of the weather and everything. Yeah, probably. I don't know. I've never been to Florida, so I talk like I'm like, oh yeah.
Florida's nice, man. It really is. It's what I like about the area we're going is there's no real undergrowth, and it's all flat. So they got to get close to you. They have to get close to you to watch you. They can't sit 100 yards away and watch you. They have to get close. So I think that's what's going to play to our advantage. And it's close quarter, and they're thick in there. This place we're going, it's going to be scary. I think the whole thing.
I tell you what, talking about the paranormal stuff. So I guess I can talk about this because Russ announced it. You guys know Russell Accord? He does the International Bigfoot Conference.
Oh yeah, okay.
Bob Hamlin's handler. Anyway, he did a TV show and he showed me a clip of it. Hopefully I can talk about this. And you see this huge, and they're going to show it on TV. It's this huge, probably twice my size, just this huge red hot object on the thermal, and it looks like a big, huge naked man walking. I mean, a very large naked man. It disappears right there. They're recording it, and it disappears. And it was the biggest thing they've ever seen on thermal. And he captured it. And as it's going, it slowly dissipates and goes away. But the image was red hot, almost hotter than a person without their clothes on. It was red hot, and then it faded away. I don't know why I brought that up, but
interesting.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool coming up.
Well, if that happened to us, you're going to get to see it. And yes, there's not crocs. No, there's alligators. The place we're going is where they take the problem alligators, the 14, 15, 16 footers. So, yeah.
Big snakes.
Have fun.
Yep. Big snakes. Oh, yeah. It's going to be work. It is going to be work for sure. Yeah. If anybody doesn't know, it's going to be called 168 Hours, a Bigfoot Odyssey. 1 week solid filming. We got 12 cameras on the ground, not counting night vision and FLIR and drone. That 6 of those cameras are going to be going at any given moment for 24 hours for 7 days. And these guys are going to conduct expeditions, and I'm going to film them doing it, hoping they catch something interesting.
Yeah, good luck to you guys. Sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, it's going to be a good story, if nothing else. We're going to make sure of that. And
so after your encounter, Wes, did you never go back? You never went back to the woods?
I have. It took me a long time to go back, but I have. I'm not a big fan of the woods. You know, the weird thing about Sasquatch, and again, this sounds very odd to say, after you have an encounter, if you're ever around another one, you almost pick up on it right away. And it's very hard to explain. Like when I was down in Texas and we heard them chattering, and I saw what I thought was someone from our group running across the road into the bushes. And I thought, oh, that's weird. I wonder why they don't have a flashlight, or I was trying to figure out who it was. But immediately I started having that feeling again. And I think after you've had it, and Kerry, you might agree with me or disagree with me, but I think after you have an encounter, there's this weird thing to where you can almost kind of sense when they're around. And it sounds...
The first time I went back, I was so freaked out anyway. I don't think I would have noticed anything at all. And we had a lot go on. But after I left Crypto Reality and went out by myself, the 2 times that I went out by myself to try researching, because that's what we were going to do. And then I couldn't do it. They were all around me. I mean, and this is where we're going to do this expedition where I went to. And I could hear them walking. I could smell them. And I mean, there's no mistaking that smell, especially down there. It smells like stale urine and a old stale dish rag. It's just got that. Nothing else smells like that. Nothing.
Yeah.
And they were all around me, and I actually got several of them on camera peeking their face through the bushes at me, Mark Zasky style. So
does it worry you going back down there?
Yeah, I don't really want to do it. I have a lot of trepidation about it, but somebody has to do this. Somebody's got to do this way.
Send Tony. I'm just joking.
I don't know.
I'm just joking, Tony. Tony's like sleep.
No.
I thought about it for so long, so many years, what it would take, what I think it would take, that I wish somebody would do, and then just happened to have the means and the means to get the word out, to get the people that were interested in doing it to making that hard sacrifice. And because you're gonna have to go in the bushes after them, and that's the thing that the whole vetting process was finding people that I thought would do this, not necessarily researchers, but I didn't want a bunch of young guys. I picked a particular type of person to do this expedition. I think I chose wisely. I'm proud of them. But as far as me, I'm not going to be in it at all. I'm going to be filming these guys do this. And then Cam Buckner from Dixie Cryptid is going to be a cameraman there also. He's going to be filming the other team as they go. I'm going to rotate every 8 hours.
Yeah.
1 in and 1 out, each team going out with hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment.
Yeah. Well, I wish you luck, man. I hope you bring back something. That's I wish you the best. I'll be rooting for you guys.
I just think somebody needs to do it. even if we're successful, it's only going to be a one-time thing for me. Somebody else can go back and do it again. So no, I don't really want to do it. I just think it needs to be done, and no one else was doing it. Simple as that. So where are we at? It's not been a pretty good show so far, I think. Aside from all the gremlins and
sorry about the technical issues, guys. I apologize.
It's okay. 220 people.
Hello, everyone in chat. Sorry, I've been trying to read the chat too, and I got enough technical issues as most people realize. So,
how about we take a few questions?
All right.
Are there any?
Look through now. If anyone's got any questions, you can put them in caps, please. I'm gonna have a look back.
Here's one. Once you complete the film, are you stepping away from Bigfoot and media? No, I'm just going to go back to doing what I was doing before, Andy. Sorry, no questions for me. You guys get enough of me. How about for Tony and Wes?
I'm looking.
Brandon Blackfry. What's the scariest encounter Wes has had? I can probably think we could probably all answer that one.
For me personally, or my encounter. Just because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know, like Kerry, it's like, what is this thing? You know, how do you classify what you're seeing? That was definitely the scariest. I've really only had 2 encounters. My second encounter in Texas, I would say, wasn't scary. I just wasn't sure what was going on. I was lost as far as what was going on. Like I was saying earlier, the guy that crossed the road, I really thought it was someone from our group because we had a bunch of people and we broke off into 2 groups. And so I thought it was one of them. And it's kind of a funny story about Bob Garrett. We start walking. We can hear it breaking branches as it's going through. And I'm still confused at this point. I mean, I'm telling Bob, I'm like, I think that's someone from our group, but they're not responding to me. And Bob's like, no. So he takes off down the trail, and Bob's an old man, so I take off after Bob. And then that's when we had the log thrown at our heads as we're going down the trail and I learned a lot from Bob, actually. Instead of cutting it off, we decided, so it was coming around this way. And I was telling Bob, let's cut it off and go this way. And he said, no, let's have it follow us. And that's when it threw the log at our head. But those are my scary encounters.
That is. What about you, Tony? Have you had any? I don't think you've had a Bigfoot.
No, Bigfoot avoid me. They know I'm out for blood. So I've never had a Bigfoot encounter. I used to go hiking a lot I started out just hiking. I like hiking, but mid-20s, I started getting interested in the topic again from when I was a child, and I never had an experience with Bigfoot. I caught like a whoop on audio. It was such bad audio, like it was so faint. I didn't even hear it in person. The guy I used to hike with, he had a Bigfoot encounter, which launched him into the experience, but not me. No, but I mean, I've had scary experiences, just not Bigfoot.
UFO. You seen them?
Yeah. That was probably that. To be honest with you, that's probably the least scariest thing I can share because I know Kerry doesn't want to go to the demonic stuff. So
I'm talking about it, but I'm sitting by myself.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I drive truck for a living, and I'm in the Philadelphia area, and I was driving back from Bensalem, Pennsylvania, on the turnpike, and I see this light in the sky as I'm going down the turnpike, and you have the Philadelphia International Airport, tons of planes coming in, and if you're not familiar with the area, you would think you're being invaded because all the planes are perfectly even the whole time you're driving because there's constant planes coming in, and but this wasn't that. It was different color light. It was like blue and red, and it wasn't moving. And I drove for about 2 miles, and I was actually gaining on it, so I know it wasn't moving. And as I was passing around the Willow Grove exit here outside of Philadelphia, I'm literally passing by this thing that I've been watching for miles. And I look up out my driver's side window, and mind you, I'm in a tractor trailer on a turnpike. I couldn't just stop the truck. But you could see the silhouette of what was hovering in the sky. And it was in the shape of a boomerang, a check mark. One side was like, if you were going to say that the check mark with like the wings, one side was shorter than the other. That's why I say check mark all the time. But it was just hovering there about 200 feet off the ground, and it was large enough that I saw it. So I'm assuming if I was closer to it, it would be even bigger. And I saw it. I think I've seen it 3 times in a matter of a month or two, right around the same area, and then it was gone. I haven't seen it since, but I have seen there was an article online of Pennsylvania UFO sightings, and there's a lot in the Philadelphia area. And this one guy that lives in Croydon, Pennsylvania, which is right next to Bensalem, where I was coming from, he described a very similar shaped craft that he saw hovering slowly going over trees when he took his dog out for a walk one night. And so I knew I wasn't crazy, and I was really glad that somebody else saw it too, because it's a story you can tell. But I was just like, man, like I don't expect to see much. Like, I really don't. I talk to so many people. I never see Bigfoot, you know. So, but I was really excited to see that UFO. That was really interesting.
Yeah. This is an interesting one, because I was going to ask you this, Wes. What do you think about Dogman?
I don't know. I don't know what to think about it. I think some of the audience doesn't like to hear me say I think it's demonic, but there's something very odd about Dogman. And if you pay attention to Dogman's behavior, it's very similar to what people describe as demonic behavior. A demon will generally focus in on one person. They generally don't mess with the whole family, and I'm speaking in general. And they'll focus in on one person. What's strange about Dogman is you'll find them doing the same thing. But it's kind of like Sasquatch. I mean, I've had people who've had Dogman encounters, and it seems very physical. I had a cop one time who, and I've told this before on the show, but I had a cop one time, a state trooper come around a corner, almost hit one. And he said it was the biggest wolf he's ever seen. Well, it stood up on 2 legs, and he had to look out the window and look up at this thing showing its teeth, and it was standing like a man, and it took off running like a man. And what do you make of that? And then I've had encounters. There was a lady one time, she had a lot of weird paranormal stuff going on around her home, a lot of demonic stuff going on around her home. And one time her friends had just left, and she's sitting out at the kitchen table, and she said that this thing started materializing in front of her. And she said that she didn't call it Dogman. She was like, it was like Anubis or something. And she's referring to the ancient Egyptian god that's half man, half dog. And it looked at her and growled and then took off. Well, her friends were just pulling out of the driveway when this thing appeared. And they heard, she heard them tear out of her driveway. And she's like, why are you tearing? And she called them later and said, why are you guys tearing up my driveway? And he said, you won't believe this. The biggest wolf we've ever seen came around the corner from your home, chasing the car. And she had wondered if it was the same thing that, you know, and I asked her, I said, was it physical? And she was like, yeah, it seemed to be very physical. But at the beginning, it didn't seem like that because it's materializing. And so it makes you wonder, I mean, is it some sort of something more paranormal? Because a half man, half dog makes no sense. But the term Dogman is kind of a new term. It's been called many things throughout history. You can go through all the ancient writings, werewolves, it's been called everything. And so it's been around for a long time. Now I'm just rambling. I don't know if I answer your question. I don't know what the Dogman is. I believe people are seeing it, though, because they're very consistent on what they saw.
Well, I want to say this before I duck out. There's a lady that I've been talked to her on the phone twice. She's in her late 60s, lives by herself, swears that these things talk to her, these Bigfoot and Dogman, and that Dogman is actually protecting her now, and they mind speak to her, and she's just as straight-laced, serious as a heart attack. A very, very credible, believable one. I'm trying so hard to get her to come on the show. A corollary, when we went to the Omaha Indian Reservation in Nebraska, they told the story is, or the history is, that the Dogman is the protector of the path. The path being, I think, another plane of existence or whatever, that he guards the entrance, the portal or whatever it is. And then where the veil is thin is when you get to see the Dogman. And that's what the Omahas believe.
That's what Anubis was. He was the guardian of the underworld. You know, same type of thing.
Exactly what they believe. So I mean, a coincidence? I don't believe in them. But hey, I've got to duck out, Danielle. I hope you keep this going. I just want to let everybody know. Sasquatch, I got to go back out to work, man.
Oh, I get you. Check
out SasquatchChronicles.com, theconfessionals.com. Go be a member. You'll get access to all their shows, or you can just catch them on YouTube every now and then and get whatever they put out there. But make sure you go check that out. Saturday, we got a pretty good show. I don't remember who it is, but just want to wish everybody happy Halloween. I may come back and do a midnight show with some of the expedition crew. It's possible. I got to make sure everything is all working properly out here, though. But Tony and Wes, thank you guys so much for coming on. Definitely want to have you back.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. And Kerry, you know I love you, man. I break your balls, but I love you, man.
That's all good. I love you too. We're gonna just come back for a report one day. Tony, you know you guys are welcome anytime.
Thanks. Just let me know anytime. Thank you again.
All right. Y'all have a good night. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween. Well, okay. Well, so Kerry's gone. Guys, you don't have to carry on if you need to go. If I know Kerry said it's going to be an hour and we have gone over. So, but there's just a few more questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to answer them or you mind answering them.
Yeah.
There was one I saw. I'm just trying to find it, and there was one for Tony, but I can't find it. But the one for Wes is, what was your impression of Bigfoot before you saw it? You came across one. Did you believe in them or?
Not really. I mean, I thought, well, it could be possible. I mean, I'm not arrogant enough to assume I know everything, but I had hunted this whole area. I mean, I'd slept out in just a sleeping bag in a lot of these areas, no tent, no nothing. And so I'd been all over, pretty much all over the place, not everywhere, but you know what I mean? So it didn't really ever cross my mind. And I can't remember ever seeing, there was one weird thing that happened two weird things that happened to me and Woody when we were out. But as far as hearing them or I didn't really have an opinion, I guess, one way or another. Short answer.
Okay. Someone keeps asking about an update on, I don't know who this is for actually. Sarah Brown from Grays Harbor.
That would be Wes.
I haven't talked to Sarah in a long time. Sarah, the Browns property is what they're referring to. Sarah's very sweet. Jonathan's awesome. Great people. Sarah came to the conclusion that they're demonic. And so she quit looking into them, quit recording them, quit all across the board, wants nothing to do with it. And so I haven't talked to them in probably...
If you want an update on Sarah, since she's been on your show, she actually did, I believe it was after she was on your show, Wes, she did an interview with a guy named Josh Peck. So if people want, they can Google, or not Google, just YouTube, Josh Peck, Sarah Brown interview. It should pop up. But I think in that interview, she goes into a lot more details of what she believes. And, she got a lot deeper spiritually as to her conclusions on it.
Yeah. And Sarah's a smart lady, very sweet. But that's kind of what she told me. And then we just haven't talked for a long time. So.
Okay, cool. Tony, the cryptids like, say, Shadow Man, Hat Man, Rake, they feel like relatively new, don't they? Or more modern? What are they the modern version of, or are they something new?
Well, I think Hat Man is an entity that people have been seeing for the ages. But now I just think that with the internet, communication's a lot easier and we're hearing about it more. For instance, my wife saw a Hat Man, but she never knew what Hat Man was. She didn't know what she saw until she was listening to a podcast with me on a drive to New Jersey. and it was a Hat Man show, and she's quiet, and I look over and like, you all right? Like, she looked worried, and she's like, I've seen this. And I'm like,
You never told me that. Really? Lindsay saw one, huh?
yeah. Yeah. So she saw Hat Man when she was a little girl, and that kind of spawned a conversation with, I'm doing a podcast on the paranormal, and it was like the first time her and I actually sat down and talked about her experience, and she has a lot of experiences from her childhood. So the Hat Man, I think has been around for a long time. You mentioned something else. What'd you say?
The Rake.
The Rake. The Rake is something where it's like, pick your poison as to what it is. You can simply just call it a monster. There's a lot of people that believe it is an extraterrestrial entity. There's a lot of people that believe it's demonic, but the videos that I've seen of the theoretical Rake seem very physical. And one thing that I find interesting, and when we talk about similarities through and crossing lines, like Wes was talking about earlier, you find details from people's different stories and stuff that kind of match to other people's stories. You hear that these things make this awful screeching howl, yell, scream. And I find interesting that a lot of these accounts of people seeing these things, or some of the videos online, very similar from video to video and from account to account, people describing this screeching, almost like what I heard, it sounds like a wild boar screaming for its life. But it's not screaming for its life. It's probably screaming for yours. Happy Halloween. So, but yeah, I don't think that the Rake necessarily is. I don't think we're at a point with the Rake where we've had enough accounts to start trying to categorize it or anything like that. I think the Rake, we're still trying to just collect information in people's accounts as to what they saw. Like a guy in Texas I interviewed, he saw two of them walking up a hill. Not a scary situation. They were driving down the road. They saw these things, but what he described to me was something that I've heard a lot about. And then he sent me a picture of what his friend drew, because his friend was with him. His friend drew what they saw. And what he sent is identical to what we've seen in the past with these Rakes. And so I told him, I said, I think this is a Rake. I think my wife told him that in the email. And he's like, what's that? And we sent him stuff. And he's like, whoa, that's what we saw. So, yeah.
That's creepy.
Daniela, do you guys do Halloween in the UK?
Yeah.
Do you?
Okay. Well, we carve pumpkins and then the parents send the kids out to collect sweets from strangers, just knocking on strangers' doors.
Yeah.
That's about it. That's about it, really. People dress up and that. It's an excuse to go out and have a drink, I think, for a lot of the adults. But, yeah, I guess it's lost its meaning if it ever, meant anything here. People kind of just do tradition, don't we now? A lot of people just do tradition for the sake of doing tradition a lot of the time.
Halloween's creepy, though. If you look at the origins of it, it's a creepy holiday.
It is, yeah. But I think it's kind of lost that kind of essence now too.
Very commercialized.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just another excuse, isn't it, to waste money on stuff. Yeah. I don't see the point in buying loads of candy and then giving it to kids you don't know. Just you might as well eat it. And
that's what I like to hear.
Put a padlock around the gate. They can't come in the door. It's easy. I've sorted that out. But yeah, I do like spooky stuff. I do like scary stories and that. But actually, myself, to have something happen to me would really, really freak me out. As much as I've always said I want to connect with something, I always felt like there was some people in my life when they passed. A couple of us have said we'd try and make contact or give you a sign, and the kind of really spiritual people, but nothing's ever happened. And then you hear about someone who is having stuff happening all the time, or like the dog died and they can still feel it jumping on the end of the bed and things like that. So I don't know how it works, or whether you've got to be really open to it. I think I'm open to it, but inside I'm going, no, I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I hear you.
I think it's kind of something like that. I'm just going to see if there's any more questions in the chat. I'll tell you which was a creepy episode, and I just hope I'm getting it right now. And I think it was yours, on one of yours, Wes's, is the guy who saw the Arab walking on the wall.
Oh,
in a horizontal fashion.
Yeah.
That is like, all of his accounts were kind of weird. But
one thing I noticed on the East Coast is you'll find a lot, like how we talk about Bigfoot and ghosts, they'll talk about the jinn. Like in the Middle East, I mean, not East Coast, Middle East, they'll talk about the jinn. And you'll hear a lot of bizarre stuff, especially from soldiers that have been over there. You'll hear a lot of really bizarre stuff. And it makes you wonder, like what you're talking about, Danielle, that guy had on. And I asked him, I said, did the guy appear physical? And he said, absolutely. He looked like you and I, except for he's walking up a wall. But I had a lot of soldiers contact me after that show and go, yeah, I've seen a lot of really strange, bizarre stuff over there. And I mean, you'll hear UFO encounters, you'll hear all kinds of weird stuff in the Middle East. It's hard to know what to make of that. You know what I mean?
So do you think they're building people to do this kind of stuff? I mean, is that a possibility? Like someone said before, Dogman, is he actually just been created in a lab? And, we do hear about trying to build the perfect soldier.
Super soldier. Yeah.
Who's to say, I don't know, there's stuff out there that we can do that we don't know we can do, or that they can create. What do you think, Tony?
There's definitely stuff going on that we don't know that they're doing. Just look at China for the example. I mean, if you want a little sample size as to what we as a Western civilization, whatever country, I know you're not in America, but speaking for America, they are doing stuff here that you couldn't even imagine. But if you want, just look at China, because China is much more open about their scientific advancements as to manipulating DNA and cloning and things like that. I promise you, if China's doing it, we've done it.
Well, the Brits, I don't mean to cut you off, Tony, but the Brits are the ones that came out and for what's the word I'm looking for, Tony? Half man, half
chimera. You cut me off.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
I'm kidding.
The chimeras. The Brits came out with a law that basically protects chimeras, half man, half animal, and the US followed suit. Sorry, Tony, I didn't mean to cut you off, man. I'm half awake.
That's okay, buddy. It's
sorry,
right.
brother.
I'm only 3 hours ahead of you.
Oh, that's true. Oh, okay. I'll be quiet now.
No, I forget what I was saying, but no, I mean super soldiers and stuff like that. I mean, if you look at the technology that we have today, that we know we have, and you would think if you were the guy in charge of everything, you would, and you know what technology we have, and you're letting people have certain technologies, would you allow them to see and know everything that you have? Of course not, especially if you're in charge of protecting your group of people from others, because you don't want other people to know. With the technology that we have, and assuming they have other technology that's far more advanced than what we have, you would think that that's what they do, though. They're trying to find the next edge. I was doing a delivery one day to a casket place, and this old Italian guy owned the place. And I was talking with him, and he was in the military in the 60s, and he was an engineer. And he told me, he said, listen, and he had no idea who I was, what I do and stuff. We were just talking. I have a way with people. I get him to start saying stuff. And he said that the technology that we have today, he said, we were developing in the 60s. He said the night vision that they have today, we had in the 60s. It just wasn't readily available. And so you take that idea and you put it in 2019. They have technology that isn't going to come around for another 70, 80 years. So if they have that kind of technology, what are they doing with it? Well, they're trying to get an edge militarily. And that includes super soldiers and many other things. It includes drones. It includes robotics. They have robots. I think it was Boston. Was it Boston? I forget what that institute was. Is it called Boston Institute? Wes, do you know about that? The robotic place, Boston. I forget, but there's a company.
The robot where they kick him in the back and
no, they have a robot that I think the initials say eat, and it literally fuels itself by eating dead corpses. So this thing can go on a battlefield and eat people, dead people, and that's how
it could go wrong.
Huh?
What could go wrong?
Exactly. And so those are things. And look it up. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but that's real. It's real, and it's been out for at least 2-3 years. They've had that, and so I say all that to say that there are way more scientific, technological advancements that we can't even fathom it. And they're doing what they can to get an edge on things. And sometimes those things peek through, and people, you see it in a forum somewhere. I'm anonymous and I've seen them doing this. And then some people choose to believe, but most people say, oh, that's just somebody crazy. And then 10-15 years later, we start seeing it, It's
it seems kind of extreme though, doesn't it? When all the people are all eating, then what? I mean, what is it?
Well, their idea was that it's not going to eat me or you. It's just, it can feel, and it's like they weren't saying dead people. They were saying, what's the word I'm looking for? Not biodegradable. I can't think of the word. What am I thinking? But organic matter. Like it didn't have to be people. It could be a dead animal or whatever. But it eats flesh to fuel itself. And they were saying that these things could be used on the battlefield because when there's dead people, it can go into places very dangerous where we don't need to send our soldiers because it can keep going.
You don't have to bring the camping kit, do they? And the tins of
yeah, right. Well,
going.
I mean, that's where we're going now. Anyways, I mean, we're fighting wars through a computer screen.
Traveling light.
What was that?
Traveling light.
Yeah, real light. But I mean, and you talk about the paranormal side of things, and I'm sure people have heard about CERN and what theoretically goes on there, and that's one of the things that you can say. Well, there are forums online that people pop up in that say, "I worked at CERN. Here are some things that are going on," and people are like, some people want to believe it, some people say it's crazy, but there are a lot of different sources coming out that are saying that CERN is doing things that are dangerous. They are theoretically, I guess. I want to keep saying theoretically because but supposedly they're opening up portals with this hadron collider, and there have been things that come through. And so is that some of the things that we're seeing? I don't know. I doubt it. I doubt that everything that we're seeing came from CERN. But when you're messing with that kind of stuff, that kind of technology, especially when you don't fully understand it, things can happen. And, if you have any doubt as to what their motives are there, not doubt, but a sign, I guess, is they have a statue of the goddess Shiva right out front of the facility. And Shiva, Wes, do you remember what Shiva stands for? What Shiva is? I can't remember. I think it's like the goddess of war or something like that. If I remember correctly. I was
going to say fertility, but you might be right.
No, I think you are right. I should Google it. I should have Googled this before I started the show. But they have whatever it stands for. It doesn't really matter to my point, which is I don't put Shiva out in front of my house. I don't put Shiva in front of my workplace. I don't put Shiva in front of my public school system. Why are they putting Shiva, a goddess, in front of this facility? And it's because they put weight into these types of things, the things that we talk about, the other realm. And I think that can be concerning when you're combining science and that kind of stuff, because we call that alchemy. And that's concerning.
Yeah. What I find really interesting is that, whatever things that are going on, there's always seems to be someone who's was part of the company. Now that they're giving away some sort of secrets, we kind of hear people that have been in certain places, and you know, people like Bob Lazar who's giving off information about what he was doing, and people like you're saying from CERN, people who have come out and said these things are happening. How has Bigfoot managed to be so well covered up? If that's what it is being covered up. How come nobody has been a whistleblower? How come after all these years, if it is a kept secret for a reason, there must be someone surely who's a bit of a blabbermouth who at some point is going to come out and say, does that not sound likely that maybe someone should already be out there saying this is exactly what's going on?
Wes?
Anybody?
Well, I mean, I'll just say what I'm thinking real quick, and because I know Wes has opinions on this, but when we say government, you know, when I say government, there's got to be a better phrase, because I don't think that the president of the United States knows anything about Sasquatch, and I don't think that his cabinet, I don't think that the head of our military does. I think that there is a subsection tucked away in the bowels of the CIA. I don't think it's a big organization.
Yeah, it's all department.
It's a department with, you know, a nice little
compartmentalized. Everything's you know. So I mean,
right.
The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. Sorry, Tony.
Exactly. And then you're absolutely right. I mean, that's how a lot of stuff works that we know about. To keep things from being leaked out. It's just like you said about Bob Lazar and stuff. I mean, Bob Lazar says that everything's compartmentalized, and so like he was doing a very specific thing, and he was not allowed to talk to other people, and they weren't allowed to exchange notes. And it was like you only know what you need to know. And so I think that's kind of one way. But Wes, you know, you're the Bigfoot guy, so go for it.
It's a good question, Daniela, and I don't have a great answer for you. It does come out every once in a while. Like here in Washington State, they put out, the Army Corps of Engineers put out a thing for Washington State, letting you know all the animals you could run into, and one of them was Sasquatch, and they have it in there. They have a picture of it. They kind of give you a breakdown of what Sasquatch eats, and this pamphlet costed I think like $250,000. This is back in the 70s, which was a ton of money back then. And they put it in there, and it wasn't in there for a joke. They put it in there like, yeah, you're probably running into this thing. And they tell you, oh, he's shy and he'll leave you alone, leave him alone. I think a lot of times when people come forward, whether it's aliens or Sasquatch or whatever it is, and people who have real information, I don't think live very long. Bob Lazar, for example, I think there was too much noise around him at the time when he came out. If he would have just disappeared, he would have been a martyr. People would have said, see, he told you. He knew exactly. And I think that's the only reason why he's still alive, is because he would have been a martyr. The weird thing about Bob Lazar, for example, there's a lot of things he talked about 30 years ago that we know to be true today.
Right.
And back then, everyone thought he was a nut. They're like, nah, there's no element 115. There's no this. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, there is. It's on the chart table now. And so I think you take a guy like that, and I think they let him live because it would have been too much of, if this guy winds up dead or suicide, it would have raised too many eyebrows. So they just kind of discredit him as being a nut. And they tried very hard to discredit him as being a nut. And so I think most people, when you say Bob Lazar, it's 50-50 in the United States. Most people go, yeah, he's nuts. He's crazy. Yeah. The other half will believe. But if you hear what he says, I don't think he's full of crap.
No.
No.
To answer your question, I think anytime you have real information, I don't think you, and if you start talking about real information, I don't think you are going to be around very long. It's kind of like when people have encounters. I don't think the government cares about encounters. I think they could care less whether you want to come forward and talk about your encounters. The minute you actually have some sort of physical evidence, that's when you start seeing a lot of weird cover-up things that tend to happen, and it's hard. A lot of it's odd. A lot of it's really odd. But anytime someone has blood or tissue or real evidence, people tend to be quiet. I've talked to people who've had real evidence, and after a couple of days, they'll no longer take my phone call. They'll no longer respond to my emails. They'll no longer. So someone's listening, and it's happened over and over and over again. So it's not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've heard stuff like that on your shows when you're saying suddenly, men in white jacket things turn up, and the next thing you don't hear from them. So for it to be such a small secret being kept, say, with just a few people, the minute someone rings the police, say, to report something, and then some other officials turn up and remove the body, it feels like it's just, there's more people knowing about it than we think. That actually,
even like Claire's encounter, Daniela, she's from your country, and she was over here.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, just listen to what she tells you about the two guys that showed up, and basically what they told her. I think there is a cover up, but I think it comes down to when someone gets hurt or if there's real evidence, they'll step in and try and shut someone up. And Claire is pretty high up in the business world as far as food chain goes. And I think it was important for them to shut her up. Plus, she had no knowledge of Sasquatch. She didn't know what she ran into. And I think it was important for them to shut her up.
It's really like, oh, you saw Sasquatch? That's nice. Like you said, Wes, prove it. Because if I go into work and I tell the guys at work, I saw Bigfoot yesterday, none of them are going to believe me. Most of them are going to think I'm crazy. There's a guy at work who, he's a religious guy. And I asked him, and we had this conversation because he kind of was scoffing at me believing that there's Bigfoot. And I said, well, you believe in UFOs, right? And he's like, no, I don't believe in UFOs. All right. So aliens are off the table. I said, you believe in demons, right? Now he's a Christian. You believe in demons, right? No, I don't believe in demons. You don't believe in demons? Do you believe in God? Yeah, I believe in God. Do you believe in angels? Yeah. Do you believe in demons? No. So people are going to want to believe what they want to believe. And you take the idea of UFOs. Well, we've been saying UFOs are around for 70, 80 years. We've been saying that UFOs are here and we're crazy. You're crazy. Oh, no such thing as UFOs. And all of a sudden now in the last 2-3 years, the United States government has come out and said that, yes, we've been investigating UFOs. Yes, we have evidence of UFOs. And we have the Tic Tac UFO video, one of the most famous UFO videos of all time now, that's making its rounds on, it seems like a weekly basis. I see somebody analyzing it. It's no longer a question, do UFOs exist? Yes, there is something flying in the sky that nobody in our government understands how it operates or how it could be possible. Now, if you take that fact that UFOs are real to the extent that our own government has no idea how they operate, and they admit that, you have to say what else could be real. And you also have to say, if they've been investigating these things for so long and it's just coming out now that they investigated it, well, maybe they are investigating Bigfoot. Maybe they are looking into the topic, and maybe they do know it exists. They just haven't come out and talk about it. And if they don't officially come out and say, yes, they exist, you're going to have most of the people in any country say they don't exist. Prove it to me.
Except
Show me the body. Show me the UFO that landed in your yard. Show me the alien. And until you show me something physical, you just got a story. Oh, I was abducted. I was pulled out of my house. I saw a Bigfoot. It doesn't matter. It's just a story.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm done ranting.
Except for Russia. I think it's actually an endangered species in Russia.
Right.
They have it in the Endangered Species Act, which is bizarre. But I think it'll come out in a place like Russia because I think they're more, as much as everyone thinks it's still the Iron Curtain, I don't think it is. I think they'd be more apt to come out, and they're more open to it.
Do you think it's pretty much the same creature in different countries, and not just countries, say like continents? Then do you think you're looking at a different, I know they call it the Yeti or the other name, I can't remember what it is, but I mean, do you think they are the same but different because of
I don't know. I mean, a lot of Russian reports, if you read a lot of the Russian reports, the Almas, they're very human-like. There was an account, I want to say this was back, I can't remember when it was, but it was a long time ago. I think it was like World War II, World War I, right around that time. And these Russian soldiers come up they're getting rid of these rebel people breaking away from the military, and they come up on this cave, and they get reports that the rebel soldiers are in there. And you may know the story already, Daniela. And the thing comes running out of the cave, and they all shoot it. They all open fire on it, and it looked like a caveman. It looked very human-like. So I think in Russia, if you read a lot of the reports and translate a lot of the reports, people talk about it looking very human. You go down to Australia, and it kind of seems like the same thing we have in the United States, except for it seems to be more angry. I think it's the same creature, but there's a lot of big differences too, which is bizarre. The overall description is the same, but the details aren't, and that's what throws me off.
Well, I kind of look at it similar to the idea that we got people in China that are Chinese, people in Africa that are African. We're all human beings, but we do look different DNA types. You know, Asian people tend not to be as tall as African people, who seem to be tall in some of these African countries. I forget what country it was in Africa, but the majority of people were like 6'5" plus. And so it's I look at it like general descriptions are very similar. They do vary, and maybe that has something to do with geographical locations. I don't know, but who knows?
I'm getting feedback again in my ear, guys.
A bit.
Like static in my ear.
Guys, we've gone on over 2 hours.
Danielle, it was great meeting you.
Yeah, and you too.
For having me, Kerry. Thank you for Tony.
Hey Wes, I just wanted to pay you a compliment, man. Like,
yes.
I you know, people think that we fight a lot, and I just wanted to say that, you know, you shave your head a lot, and I think for a bald guy that has a skull that kind of shaped like a Paracas skull, you pull it off well.
Thank you, my friend. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me, Tony.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Friends like that needs enemies, eh? Seriously.
We're frenemies.
I know you guys think a lot of each other. I love it, even though you're not saying it. Right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. We'll see you all on Saturday. Thank you again, Wes, so much for coming on, and Tony again. It's been great having you. And yeah, good night, everyone.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.